Tide, and welcome to Tide TV This Week. I'm Roger Hoover, joined by my co-host Kira Goldstein. And Kira, it's great to have you back. How was spring break?
It was really good, but I gotta say, I missed covering Alabama sports.
Well, we're glad you're back because right now it is a very busy time of the year. It's that time of the year where teams are beginning their postseason play. For the 6th-ranked Alabama gymnastics team, they didn't have to travel far to compete for the SEC championships.
You're absolutely right, Roger. Just a short ride to Birmingham to Legacy Arena was all the defending SEC champs had to travel to begin their postseason competition. The Tide competed in Session 2 of the SEC Championships along with Auburn, Florida, and LSU.
Now, going into the SEC Championships, the Crimson Tide were red hot, posting back-to-back 198 scores for the first time in regular season history. For the Crimson Tide, starting out on the floor exercise, a 9.925 from Lexi Graber and a 9.9 from Shalyn Olson led the Crimson Tide to a 49.425 team total. Then on vault, it was Graber again, along with Lily Hudson, as the duo posted 9.9s to lead Alabama to a 49.350 total on the vault.
In their third rotation, Alabama tied their school record on the uneven bars with a 49.675. The trio led the Tide with Makari Doggett, Shania Adams, and Luisa Blanco all scoring 9.95s. Alabama closed out the SEC Championships on the balance beam, and Ella Burgess and Lexi Graber both scored 9.9s, while Shalyn Olson posted a 9.875 for a team total of 49.375. The Tide had a really strong performance just short of their last two 198 scores, as second-ranked Florida won the SEC Championships with a total of 198.200 to better the Tide's 197.825. And it was the 31st time top two finish in SEC Championships history for the Crimson Tide.
And with its second-place finish, Alabama remains the only school in SEC history to never finish outside the top four at the conference championship meet.
And now the Gym Tide are NCAA bound. The Tide was selected as the second seed in the Seattle Regional. Fourth-ranked Utah is the #1 seed, and there are two sessions.
The top two teams from each of Thursday's sessions will compete in the regional final on Saturday, April 2nd, with the top two teams advancing to the national championships.
The Alabama men's basketball team was selected to the NCAA tournament in back-to-back seasons for the first time in 15 years. And it was the first time in 30 years the Tide entered the NCAA tournament in back-to-back seasons as a 6-seed or higher.
However, the Crimson Tide's run in the NCAA tournament was a short one. The Tide lost to 11-seed Notre Dame, 78-64. Keon Ellis led the Crimson Tide. In the loss, he had 16 points, 9 rebounds, and 2 steals. Jaden Shackelford had 13 points and 3 steals, while J.D. Davison scored 11 points with 9 assists.
With his 10 three-point attempts, Jaden Shackelford became the program's single-season record holder for threes attempted in a season with 288, while also finishing second in the Alabama record books in threes made for a year with 101.
Feel for Javon. Don't know exactly what it is, but some significant knee injury. You know, I thought he was really ready to play. I thought he'd had a great few weeks of practice. He had a voluntary shooting deal last night. He was the only guy that went. Shot it really well. I thought he was ready to play in 3 minutes in the game. You know, he gets the knee injury, can't play the rest of the game.
Seeing JQ go down in the first 3 minutes of the game was heartbreaking, Roger. Everything he has gone through to transfer and be eligible to play, and his last play in a college game was him getting injured.
Yeah, Javon posted this week on Instagram. He said the game against Notre Dame was his last college game. We wish him all the best in his Alabama career. We hate to see him go. Understand that he has to do what's best for him moving forward.
So we're sending well wishes your way, Javon. We hope you have a speedy recovery, and we can't wait to cheer you on whatever the next chapter is for your basketball career. Roll
Tide JQ, can't wait to see you back out on the court once again soon. The Alabama women's basketball team is continuing their postseason in the women's NIT. We'll have highlights of their first 2 wins.
And the Alabama football team returned to the practice field this week after getting the week off for spring break. We'll take you out to the practice field with Coach Saban and the Tide when we return.
Tide TV This Week is presented by the University of Alabama, where legends are made. Ford, for great offers on F-150, see your local Ford dealer. Proud sponsor of the Crimson Tide.
They're headed to the Women's College World Series.
And the Alabama Crimson Tide are your SEC champions for the 6th time with a record-breaking run at the Rhodes House. And a perfect present for Montana Fouts and Alabama at the Women's
Welcome back to Tide TV This Week. The Alabama women's basketball team was selected to be a part of the Women's National Invitational Tournament, also known as the Women's NIT.
Yeah, the Tide took on Troy in their first round of the matchup.
Troy led 22-19 after the first period with a score tied at 22. Brittany Davis got the offensive rebound and the putback to give Alabama the lead at 26-24. Alabama ended the first half with an 8-2 run for an 8-point lead at the break, 42-34.
Alabama increased their lead to as many as 12 in the third and fourth periods, but the Trojans made a move in the final minutes of the game. Alabama led by double digits, 78-67, with about 3 minutes left in the game, but Troy battled back. The Trojans used a 10-0 run to cut the Tide's lead to just one, 78-77, with 1:19 to go. But Jemiah Mingo Young hit the jumper and got the foul to put Alabama back up by 3. Megan Abrams then knocked down a couple of free throws in the end for a game-high 24 points as Alabama held off the late surge by Troy to advance to the second round of the Women's NIT with the 80-77 win.
That win gave the Crimson Tide a second-round matchup against Tulane in New Orleans. It was another close matchup with the Green Wave. The Tide jumped out to a 5-0 lead, but the Green Wave bounced right back with an 8-0 run of their own. Alabama retook the lead at 12-11 on this tray from Megan Abrams. The Tide ended the first period with a 4-point lead, 20-16. It was back and forth in the second, with Alabama holding on to a 4-point lead at the break, 40-36.
The Green Wave made a surge in the third. Back-to-back Kayla Anderson three-pointers gave Tulane a 7-point lead at 58-51. However, Alabama closed out the period with 8 consecutive free throws, 6 of those by Megan Abrams, to retake the lead at the end of the third, 59-58. With Tulane leading 75-73 with just over a minute remaining, Brittany Davis, she came in, she tied up the score at 75 with this layup, and Jemiah Mingo Young then gave Alabama the lead back at 77-75 with just 21 seconds remaining. From there, the Tide knocked down 4 free throws in the final 2:01 of the game to hold off the Trojans in the end as the Tide won by 4, 81-77. And that win advanced the Tide to the Sweet 16 of the Women's NIT. Alabama took on Houston at home in Coleman Coliseum. We'll have those highlights for you on next week's show.
The Alabama football team got back out on the practice field on Monday after taking the week off for spring break. Crimson Tide will practice 4 times this week on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. After this week, the Crimson Tide will have 3 more weeks of practice, ending with A-Day on April 16th.
Let's hear from Coach Saban and a couple of the team leaders on the Tide's progress so far this spring.
The biggest things that I think we came to agreement about when we all met was just everybody being bought in, everybody being committed. Nobody's looking to take the short route out. You know, we know what we did last year. We know what we have to work on. So everybody just be bought in and committed to what we have to do.
Spring is, there's always a lot of shuffling. There's always a lot of adjustments. So I think, for everyone on the team, it's a great time for us to, try to learn each other's strengths and weaknesses, kind of build that chemistry and learn together and grow together.
I think the effort, I think the attitude has, been good, and the key to the drill in spring practice is to be able to develop young players.
Heels at 2 yards. You're not at 2 yards.
I think the most important thing is the young players focus on development. They don't worry so much about what team they're on and who's in front of them and who's behind them, but they just control what they can control and focus on their development.
The personality of this defense is just to be mean, play fast, hit people in the mouth, stop the run, get them on third down situations so we can get off the field. I think we're capable of being better than we were last year. I think towards the end we started to gel a little bit more, and I think we just want to roll that over in the spring, and I think that's one of the biggest things, just keep gelling, keep molding together, everybody playing together, everybody playing fast and physical.
Me and OB are really close on and off the field, so for him to be back is huge for me. I feel like now we're always on the same page, and for us to kind of continue that and push that relationship forward, it's super exciting for me. So I'm super happy that I get another year with OB, that he'll be back, and I'm excited for the growth of this offense as a whole.
next week, Coach Saban and the Tide will return to the practice field 3 times beginning on Tuesday.
You know, you got to love this time of the year, Kira. There's so much going on. If you love Alabama athletics, spring is a perfect time of the year.
Absolutely, Roger. You know, it's starting to warm up, and it's a great time to be out at the ballpark, which is great for the Alabama baseball and softball teams as they were both at home this past weekend and had top 10 matchups.
Yeah, baseball had some late-inning dramatics in their series with 9th-ranked Florida, while softball jumped on the 8th-ranked Wildcats early on in their 3-game series. We'll have those highlights and more when TideTV This Week returns.
TideTV This Week is presented by the University of Alabama, where legends are made. Ford, for great offers on F-150, see your local Ford dealer. Proud sponsor of the Crimson Tide.
They're headed to the Women's College World Series.
And the Alabama Crimson Tide are your SEC champions for the 6th time with a record-breaking run at the Rhodes House. And a perfect present for Montana Fouts and Alabama at the Women's College World Series.
Welcome back to TideTV This Week. The Alabama baseball and softball teams had a couple of top 10 matchups this past weekend at home.
The Alabama baseball team hosted the 9th-ranked Florida Gators, while softball hosted 8th-ranked Kentucky. On Friday night at Rhodes Stadium, the Crimson Tide got on the board first, following a triple from Ashley Prangy. Allie Shipman hit one to center field for the sacrifice fly, and that gave the Crimson Tide a 1-0 lead. Alabama trailed 2-1 after the Wildcats scored a couple of runs in the 3rd inning.
But then the Tide retook the lead in the 5th. With 2 on and 1 out, Shipman roped a double through the left side, scoring 2 runs. 3-2 Alabama. The very next batter, Kaylee Tao, singled up the middle to bring home Ashley Prangy. 4-2 Alabama. Then Montana Fouts had a strong performance on the mound. She pitched 7 innings, striking out 10, allowing just 1 earned run as she improved to a perfect 13-0 on the year. Alabama defeated 8th-ranked Kentucky in Game 1, 4-2.
So a solid win for the Tide in Game 1 and Game 2 on Saturday. Kentucky got on the board first. Lauren Johnson hit a line drive home run to right center for the 1-0 lead. But in the bottom of the inning, the Tide answered right back as Ashley Prangy hit a 2-run shot to center field, 2-1 Crimson Tide. Jenna Johnson added another run on a sacrifice fly in the bottom of the 5th.
Lexi Kilfoyle picked up the complete game win as she struck out 7, allowing just 2 runs, and the Tide picked up the series win with a 3-2 victory in Game 2. Kentucky spoiled the Tide's bid to get a sweep with the 9-4 win in Game 3, but Alabama got back in the win column on Wednesday with an 8-1 win over UAB in Birmingham. Alabama improves to 25-4 on the year, and as you can see behind us, the Tide is ranked 4th this week in the polls and 5th in another.
Now softball hits the road this weekend for a 3-game series against South Carolina in Columbia. The Alabama baseball team had a tough task this weekend as the Crimson Tide opened SEC play at home against 9th-ranked Florida. We pick it up in the 8th inning with the Crimson Tide down 6-0. Andrew Pinckney erased that goose egg from the scoreboard for the Tide with a home run to straightaway center. Alabama then in the bottom of the 9th loaded the bases. With 1 out, Owen Diodati delivered. Gators second baseman made a terrific stop on this ground ball, but just couldn't get it out of his glove. Diodati is safe 2 runs across the plate.
With the bases loaded again and still 1 out, Bryce Eblin hit one to the 3rd baseman, but everyone would be safe as Will Hodo came home to make it a 6-4 game. With the winning run on first and 1 out, Jim Jarvis hit a hard grounder right to the shortstop, and the Gators turned the double play. Florida hung on to defeat the Tide in Game 1, 6-4. After a tight matchup in Game 1, Florida won Game 2 on Saturday, 13-6.
With the Gators taking the series in Saturday's win, the Tide looked to avoid the sweep in Game 3. Trailing 4-2 in the bottom of the 4th inning, Owen Diodati sent one deep over the right field wall to tie the game at 4. With the score still tied in the 5th, it was Zane Denton giving the Crimson Tide the lead on a ground ball up the middle, and the shortstop for the Gators made a great play, but second base slide was off the bag, throw was wild, Denton is safe. Bryce Eblin came around from second to score 5-4 Crimson Tide.
Florida retook the lead on a 2-run shot by Judd Fabian in the 8th. The Gators added one more insurance run in the bottom of the 8th for the 7-5 lead. Then with nobody on and no outs, Zane Denton sent one way over the wall in left field to cut Florida's lead to just 1 at 7-6.
Then in the 9th with 2 on, Jim Jarvis laid down the bunt. Third baseline perfectly. Florida pitcher tried to make the play but could not. Everyone is safe. The game is tied at 7-all. Then with the bases loaded, Zane Denton at the plate again. Florida with 5 infielders, and Denton still found a spot on the right side of the infield to get it through. The ball rolls to the outfield wall. Bryce Evelyn scored the winning run. The Crimson Tide win a walk-off victory 8-7 with the game-winning RBI off the bat of Zane Denton. So Alabama picks up the win in Game 3 after coming so close in Game 1. A big win for the Crimson Tide over the 9th-ranked Florida Gators.
This weekend, Alabama makes the short trip to Starkville as the Tide will play a 3-game series against the Bulldogs of Mississippi State. Stay with us. We'll have more Tide TV this week coming up next.
They're headed to the Women's College World Series.
And the Alabama Crimson Tide are your SEC champions for the 6th time with a record-breaking run at the Rhodes House. And a perfect present for Montana Fouts and Alabama at the Women's College World Series.
Welcome back to Tide TV This Week. The Alabama women's swimming and diving team wrapped up competition at the NCAA Championships this past week.
Crimson Tide women finished 4th overall. That was the best finish in school history.
The Tide had several top finishes and set several SEC and school records. In her first year as head coach, Margot Geer and her women's team used 6 top 6 finishes to move and stay ahead of NC State during the championship's final session. And they also picked up the program's first NCAA trophy, which goes to the top 4 team finishers each year.
Congratulations to Coach Geer and the women's swimming and diving team on their championship finish.
The men's swimming and diving team began competition at the NCAA Championships on Wednesday as well. We'll have a recap of the men's performance at the NCAA Championships on next week's show. The
16th-ranked Alabama rowing team opened its weekend at the Oak Ridge Cardinal Invitational in Tennessee.
Alabama had 3 top 2 finishes and a first-place finish. The Crimson Tide's 3 versus 8 won in the final race of the day, defeating Notre Dame and Indiana with a mark of 6:57.541. Alabama will be back in action next Saturday as the Tide will host Tennessee in Tuscaloosa for the first time in program history.
Thomas Ponder finished among the top 10 at the Linger Longer Invitational as he helped the Alabama men's golf team finish 8th overall. Ponder shot a 5-under par for the tournament, finishing in a tie for 9th overall.
Filip Planishek was named the Southeastern Conference Men's Tennis Freshman of the Week. Planishek opened competition on Sunday with a win over then 50th ranked and #1 singles player for LSU, Ronald Homan. Planishek also captured the deciding point in the Tide's 4-3 win over Drake.
George Husak's squad will be on the road this weekend as the Tide will take on Mississippi State in Starkville on Friday and Vanderbilt in Nashville on Sunday.
The Alabama women's tennis team dropped a 4-2 decision to Mississippi State on Sunday, but this weekend Jenny Mine's squad will host 2 here in Tuscaloosa as they host Missouri on Friday and Arkansas on Sunday.
Stay with us. We'll have our plays and players of the week when we return in just 90 seconds.
They're headed to the Women's College World Series.
And the Alabama Crimson Tide are your SEC champions for the 6th time with a record-breaking run at the Rhodes House. And a perfect present for Montana Fouts and Alabama at the Women's College World Series.
Out to center, good night on the run, makes the catch. Lord gets the stop and tags second. What a play by the freshman. Jenna Lord goes all out to end the inning.
Left side layup good, and she's fouled. Jemiah Mingo Young tells everybody in Troy, Alabama to just quiet down for a moment.
There's a shot to right. Back goes Seidel, leaps, and oh, what a catch! What a play by Seidel! It slammed into right, and the Tide are a winner. with the 5 infielders. He found the hole.
Welcome back to Tide TV this week. Those were our ATI plays of the week.
And that great diving catch by Dallas Goodnight that we just saw, Roger, was the NCAA photo of the week. That's actually pretty cool. And what a great catch by Dallas and a great photo by our photographer, Kent Gidley. Just amazing all the way around. Now that we've covered that, let's take a look at our players of the week, brought to you by Legacy of Hope.
Baseball's Zane Denton was the MVP in the Tide's win over number 9 Florida on Sunday. He homered in the 8th inning, and then in the 9th, Denton roped one past 5 infielders for the game-winning hit. On the day, Zane Denton was 3 for 5 with a home run and 3 runs batted in.
Ashley Prange had a big weekend for the Tide in their series win over number 8 Kentucky. Prange hit .571 on the weekend with 4 extra base hits, 3 RBIs, and a home run. Some great performances this week, Roger, from our Legacy of Hope Players of the Week.
No doubt about it. We can't wait to see what happens next week, and we want to make sure you tune in next week as we bring you more on the Crimson Tide and the all-access content of Alabama you can't get anywhere else. See you next week, everyone. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
This has been a presentation from Learfield,